Hello, my name is Gregory Lewis. I'm going to answer 3 questions. If at times it sounds like I'm reading a script, it's because I am. I wrote the script, not ChatGPT. This gives me a little bit of structure. What to do if a client's website is down? This is an area I do have experience in. First, we're going to verify that the website is down by entering URL in our browser and going to it. Obviously, we need to know the phone internet is. We can also use a third-party service like isitdownrightnow.com, confirm that it's down for everybody. When a site or page cannot be accessed as expected, we want to pay attention to what we see in the browser. Is the site down or just a page? These are indicated by HTTP errors, where a 404 error indicates page not found, but the site is still technically working. Also, a 500 error is a server error, and for that we must take further steps. It's important in most cases we have access to a cPanel, control panel, or WHM panel on the hosting server. Without that level of access, we personally can't do much about it. If we get a site cannot be reached, possible errors are expired domain, which is probably the rarest of reasons, or a change in DNS settings, or sometimes something like error in the A record. It's also possible that the hosting company is at issue. If the hosting plan is expired, we won't even be able to log in the hosting account, much less a cPanel. If we determine the hosting account is active, we will want to open a support ticket with the hosting company. Sometimes by phone, but often these days by chat box, and explain the issue. After that, it's really a matter of follow through with the hosting company on the support ticket. I recommend staying on the phone with the customer support until they resolve it, or give explicit instructions that they have to elevate this problem to another level, and it may take some time. If that's the case, we'll want to get an ETA before hanging up the phone or closing the chat box. And I find that reporting back to the client regularly, not too frequently, but as information becomes available, is helpful. You don't want to leave the client hanging or wondering for too long what's going. They want to see movement, that this problem is on a trajectory of resolution. Another thing to take note of is if a system failure has been reported on the hosting account dashboard. Sometimes like we are aware of a problem, or the server hosting the website is on is down. In the case of a 500 error, it usually indicates a break in the code. Finding the break and resolving its cause will matter of looking at the page file or template, stepping through the code to breakpoints. Usually, we will want access to a development environment where we can reproduce the error. That is, make a change to the file, save, then test. Usually, sites will have an error log. For example, WordPress can be enabled to save errors in a file, which we can read and know the chain of events leading up to the error, page by page and line by line. Fixing such errors is not necessarily a quick process, however, as the nature of code is very broad, and not even the code may be good, but maybe the database server is down, something like that, or something with a database table. Sometimes collaboration with an end user is necessary. For example, is the site working until they click some action? Did they get an email with a bad link? You may need to refer back to the user who originally reported the problem. The second question has to do with the process for creating a website and also migrating a website. There are 2 main parts to architecting a website, and these are design and functionality. After that, we can consider cost in terms of development, hosting, and maintenance. I like to know the client's industry because that will set the track for the public-facing theme. The client may already have a look or theme in mind, in which case that's what you have to work with. Client may not have any idea what the site should look like, so the developer will offer guidance of where a look and feel become a collaborative effort. What must a website do? What kind of process flow does the client think should happen? This may turn into a task analysis where the client expects visitors to first be presented with a landing page, and the landing page has actionable items such as links, forms, and buttons that do something. Will this be a simple brochure style or vanity site, informative only, possibly an about and contact page? Is the site more complex, perhaps database driven, and consuming third-party services through APIs, like government sites often do, with interfaces to other departments or other agencies, integrating OAuth logins to Google accounts, things like that, or Google Sheets. Websites are traditionally divided into front end and back end. The front end is what it looks like in your browser. The back end server side is server side code and database. For larger agencies, we have workers who specialize in each dimension. In terms of hosting, this is something that has changed quite a bit in recent years because multiple technologies are integrated. For example, the code base may be PHP or ASP, but because the front end is written with React, it may be necessary to also have, in addition, a Node.js server. For the question of migration to a new site, I rely on the concept of model view controller, if not completely, then at least in part. If there is no design change, then we simply move the file base using FTP, SSH, or a git deploy. Sometimes we have to move the database to a new database server, update the credentials in the files. If the front end does change, but the back end doesn't, we want to make sure the components translate in a new layout. Servers do not always behave the same way, especially where server versions and configurations differ. This is what makes having a development, staging, and production environment a must-have. It's possible that the original site was operating on a PHP 7.x version, but the new site is hosted on PHP 8. In this case, there are different renderings that can and often do result in errors. Often we know where to look for the error when you know that the site worked just fine before, but now it doesn't. Nothing else has changed except for the new site location. The third question is, what kind of client do I prefer? As a contractor, I have something to do with it. As working for other clients, I don't have anything to say about it. Having worked with so many different clients, so many different diverse industries, I do have a feel for what I like. And I tend to work better with more conservative-minded clients, such as those in the financial sector, because they're all about how it works and looks in the end. They're also more stable, I think, personalities, and aren't subject to changing their minds often, even within a single day. Mercurial personality changes, forgetting what they said only hours before. Vague directives that could be interpreted to mean multiple things. Requirement creep, where a request was made to change copy or color, but before you know it, a week has gone by and the scope of work fans out, no end in sight. They wanted you on Monday to make a margin with 20 PX, but now you have to make a new block quote short code, and And after that, wouldn't it be nice to have a embed video code that does something, flips the frame or different aspect ratio or whatever it is. Before you know it, the site can drag on for weeks, and so you have to set expectation ahead of time. Both of you have to know. The requirement creep is all right if the client's paying for that time. It's not all right if they paid for a nominal amount for a 3-page site, but it's taking you months to put it together. With that said, I've worked for astrologers, conspiracy theorists, journalists, lawyers, professional football players, fitness gurus, and holding companies sitting on $500 million of assets on Rockefeller Plaza enjoy no notoriety at all. It has been my experience that the clients who pay the least are the most unappreciative, yet most demanding, while the wealthiest clients are inexplicably the most appreciative and least troublesome. That's my experience. Thank you for listening.